Iran just fired 180 missiles at Israel, and it's like a flashback to their similar attack back in April. But here's the thing, despite the massive strike, there's actually not much reported damage. Did Iran miss their targets, or are they up to something? It didn't seem like a random barrage. Those missiles did target several military sites, however that wasn't all. They also struck close to schools and shopping centers, dragging civilians into the mix. It's hard to ignore that this could be just the beginning, with both sides inching closer to full-on war. If it has come to that, who would win? The question on many people's minds immediately after was what Iran was actually shooting at. Was it a directed attack, or were they simply trying to send a message? Well, they did in fact seem to have specific targets. If we pull up a map of Israel, many ballistic missiles were directed towards Nevatim right over here, Hatzerim over here, and the Tel Naf air bases in Beersheba, Negev Desert, and Tel Aviv, respectively. However, missiles didn't just impact near military bases, they also hit a school in Gedera, which happened to be near a Tel Naf airbase, and also hit close to the Ayalon Mall over Ramat Gan. From the amount of missiles fired, sitting near 180, you'd expect some casualties, right? Well, things turned out a bit more complicated than that. While Israel reports that between them and their allies they actually intercepted the majority of the missiles, Iran, however, claims that 90% of the missiles hit their intended targets, but there isn't really a whole lot of evidence to back this claim up. Israel did report one Palestinian fatality near Jericho in the West Bank and another 2 injured Israelis in Tel Aviv from the attack. It's possible not much infrastructure was damaged, since Israel hasn't said anything, but they could be keeping that on the down low to not appear vulnerable to more attacks. So was maximum damage even the goal for Iran in the first place, with Iran having around 7,000 artillery units and 3,000 ballistic missiles at hand? It's doubtful that damage was the goal for the attack. Well, perhaps not the only goal, at least, since a similar event occurred in April this year when Iran launched 120 missiles and 170 drones at the southern regions of Israel. Perhaps it was a measured probe to test how many missiles could get through Israel's layered air defense, or at the very least a showing of solidarity with its allies in the region. In any case, will Israel just send some missiles back like last time, or will they say enough is enough? Between being alerted by the United States and warned by their very own air defense systems, there were miraculously almost no casualties from all those missiles. Now, at a glance, the attack might seem to have fallen flat, but it actually sends a rather strong message. Iran is not holding back. They will stand with their allies, and Israel must respond. I want to address you, the people of Iran. Even if Iran warns Israel that if they retaliate they should expect more missiles, will Israel retaliate? And if so, how? Israel's top brass has made it crystal clear that Iran will pay for this attack, and given Israel's superior air power, even more missiles are a likely answer if they do not respond in kind. Where would Israel even aim? This is a good question. Let's open up the map again, as Israel's last response was a targeted missile attack against the 8th Air Force Base over here in Isfahan, successfully damaging air defense systems. This could mean that, unfortunately for Iran, lightning could strike this airbase twice, and because of those aforementioned damaged air defense systems this time, it could be even worse. What is so important in Isfahan anyway? Well, we don't know the exact reason, but a good one could be that Isfahan houses the Isfahan Nuclear Technology Center. At least that would be a good enough reason for the former Prime Minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett, who said after the attack, "We must act now to destroy Iran's nuclear program, its central energy facilities, and to fatally wound this terrorist regime." We have the justification, we have the tools. Now that Hezbollah and Hamas are paralyzed, Iran stands exposed. Isfahan is the usual suspect here, and potentially the easiest target for Israel. Yet there is another target that presents itself on a silver platter to Israel that could very well cripple Iran. The very same reason so many people think the West is in the Middle East in the first place: oil. That's right, oil fields could be a potential target for Israel. The vast oil and gas fields of Iran stretch along the western border of Iran, from Khuzestan Ravi up here on the border with Iraq all the way to Bandar Abbas down here on the coast, where the majority of these fields on land taper off around Bushehr. The vast number of fields, combined with their relative openness and lower amount of defense, are a tantalizing target for an Israel looking to hamstring Iran, hitting the economic workhorse of Iran. When their government is facing such mounting social pressure from the terrible economy, could be like hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. They would essentially be kneecapping Iran with their retaliation, and could then focus their efforts on the Gaza Strip, with Israel's response being unpredictable. Are these the only 2 targets for their wrath? Well, not exactly. While they are the 2 biggest and juiciest targets for Israel, the port city of Bandar Abbas is also a tempting target. It is a major hub For energy infrastructure and the Iranian Navy, the fact that it's in Bushehr, which is where the oil fields happen to taper off, is a coincidence. Other targets could be Iranian leaders, where Israel could target them as they did with Hezbollah, though that is much harder to both pull off successfully and be able to deal a significant blow to Iran. While Israel's retaliation promises to be swift and precise, they may hold back from all-out war for now to avoid dragging other nations into the conflict. But how will Iran react to this counterstrike? Will this conflict escalate into something with worldwide ramifications? At this moment you may be worried that this conflict could escalate into a multi-front war, with proxies such as the infamous Cold War of the late 20th century. Unfortunately, if you've been paying attention, it appears that it already has. Iran's attack was already a response to Israel killing Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah and Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh a week prior. Iran itself has made it a multi-front war with its now repeated attacks on Israel, and with Israel beginning their ground invasion into southern Lebanon targeting Hezbollah strongholds. A ground war has already begun. Israel's goal of breaking down Hezbollah's infrastructure swiftly comes with a heavy price, as both the terrain and Hezbollah fight back with Hezbollah's guerrilla warfare and supplied arms from other Iranian allies. It is slow going for Israel now because the ground invasion has escalated the conflict, dragging Hezbollah into direct combat and increasing the risk of a prolonged regional war. Eyes may be turning to another battlefield to get an edge: cyber warfare. We live in a time where cyber attacks being used as a means of war are no longer a thing of the future. This conflict is no different since the beginning of the conflict in Gaza. Cyber attacks between Israel and Iran have already tripled, where neither country's government publicly takes credit for a large number of these attacks. Several groups linked with either country have, with targets ranging from critical infrastructure such as the multiple water and wastewater facilities in the U.S. that were hacked in November of 2023. Targeting programmable logic controllers built in Israel to ransomware attacks on any number of computers in any sector, to disabling the card systems for purchasing gas at gas stations. Like in Iran in 2021, I would not have wanted to be driving then if 70% of gas stations couldn't take cards. Well, maybe it's a good thing if less people were driving, but I doubt the people thought that way in the moment. Regardless, even with some spillover into allied countries, it is entirely likely that even more attacks could happen outside the region itself as things ramp up, especially in today's day and age where nearly everything is online and more is only accessed through the internet. The cyber battlefield will be just as crucial as the physical ones, with both nations using everything at their disposal to gain the upper hand. But speaking of everything, there's one question begging to be answered: could this go nuclear? Could this conflict push either nation to consider nuclear weapons, with Israel estimated to having 90 nuclear warheads and Iran not confirmed to have any despite their best efforts? This would be a one-sided exchange unless something changes. The use of nuclear weapons is generally considered to be a last resort, yet with the ground war being on Israeli soil, it's clear who would be capable and willing to use this, and all the more likely a possible reason why Iran hasn't done too much damage to Israel is that they're afraid of Israel feeling like they're about to lose and launching nukes. The only real target for those nukes wouldn't be on the Gaza Strip, where Israel is trying to claim land, but Iran itself, since Israel has no current intention of setting foot there. With the October 1st attack by Iran, it is still highly unlikely that a nuclear exchange would happen, but this fear of things going nuclear could be the reason why Iran's attack was so underwhelming despite its number of missiles. Yet with these repeated attacks and Israel being surrounded on all sides in the region, the specter of such an event looms large. Before we reach that point, the world is watching and waiting to see if diplomacy or military force prevails. So who stands to win this escalating conflict between Israel and Iran? Well, the truth is, in a war like this, no one really wins. While Israel has superior defense systems and military technology, Iran has shown it can launch massive and coordinated strikes, a rather clear example of quality versus quantity as the world waits for Israel's next move. The hope is that cooler heads prevail before the conflict spirals completely out of control. In the end, military strength may determine who wins between countries and their ultimately short-term gains, but the real cost is felt by the people of both nations. Let's hope diplomacy steps in before this goes any further and even more innocent people die. Bye for now.